Defense first, grit over flash, and yes, a little piss and vinegar. The Boston Bruins are trying to be harder to play against, but they could be a very easy out if they can't put the puck in the back of the net.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. The puck drops on a new season this week, and before heading out, the Bruins top brass, Charlie Jacobs, Cam Neely, Don Sweeney, laid out what this team is built to be under new head coach Marco Sturm. Today, we're diving into three key storylines: a new identity and a piss and vinegar standard, Fraser Minten's rise and how it kind of reshaped the roster, and Zdeno Chara's mentorship, leadership renewal, and the pressure to deliver in a demanding market. Before we get into all that, I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Like I said, my name is Ian McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I've been covering this team and the NHL for various outlets for about 20 years now. Please do subscribe on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. You can also follow along on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. That's on Blue Sky, X, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. You can find me, my hockey thoughts, and dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. So yesterday, the Bruins announced their 23-man roster. And before I get into what we learned from Jacobs, Neely, and Sweeney, sigh of relief was breathed by many of us when Michael DiPietro, Matej Blumel were able to clear waivers and be assigned to Providence. Curiously, a couple other goaltenders were claimed off waivers. Caden Primo, Colton Ellis. Michael DiPietro was last year's goalie of the year in the AHL. Interesting that he was not scooped, and thankfully he was not, because who knows if they might need him at some point in the season. It just helps the overall organizational goaltending depth. Same with Blumel, Alex Steeves. On defense, Jonathan Asperat and Victor Soderstrom cleared, and Providence is going to be pretty fun to watch with all of those guys down there with chips on their shoulders after not making the big club to begin the season, including Matt Poitras, who was sent down, did not have to go through waivers. With all that dust settled, Charlie Jacobs opened the press conference yesterday by saying it felt like Christmas morning. A lot of great energy around the Bruins, he said. Marco Sturm has brought real energy and real structure to the team. And he said the Bruins will be a very difficult team to play against, and that was the intention. And that word, structure, was repeated again and again by everyone on stage. Don Sweeney said Sturm's first camp as head coach was competitive and structured, with a focus on reestablishing and building the foundation for how the Bruins expect to play. Last season, of course, they started out under Jim Montgomery, one system. Joe Sacco came in, didn't really try to reinvent the wheel. They struggled all season long, couldn't score, couldn't defend, couldn't kill penalties, couldn't score on the power play, couldn't stop the puck, couldn't score. So many things went against them, and they're trying to rebuild that foundation and reset the standard. And Sweeney pointed to the final preseason game against the Rangers as an example. That first period was the benchmark, the litmus test. They kind of reverted in the second, corrected in the third, but the first period is the standard. When they came out aggressive, were able to make some plays, get some contributions up and down the lineup, and it's all going to start with defense. That's the standard moving forward, according to Sweeney and Neely. Cam Neely admitted the team might struggle to score early. I mean, he's not making any huge revelations there. That's not a secret. everybody knows this team could struggle to score because apart from the first line, and you could see some regression from Morgan Geekie. We've talked about that. His shooting percentage was very high last year, so he's going to need to up his shot volume in order to maintain that. Elias Lindholm should rebound, but who knows? The second line showed some chemistry in that preseason game. They got to keep it going. After that, though, it's pretty thin. And Neely's thinking they're probably going to have to play a lot of 2-1 games. And they're going to have to be on the winning side of those if they have any chance of sniffing a playoff spot. Obviously, a healthy Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm will be crucial to any success this season. Jeremy Swayman's strong camp gives them confidence in net as well. The fact that he was there from day one, this time last year, it was around the time when he had just signed. We were coming off Cam Neely's 64 million reasons to be there quote. This time around, with Swayman having gone through a whole camp healthy, looked very good in that preseason game against the Rangers. They're expecting to play very hard every game and to be a tough out. And the quote that sums up everything about this year's roster came from Cam Neely. He said, "We really felt the bottom part of our lineup needed a little more piss and vinegar, if you will. That was something we attacked first." And that phrase, piss and vinegar, isn't just colorful language. It's kind of an organizational blueprint. Sweeney explained the thinking. Last year, the Bruins weren't competitive enough day to day. This year, they've built a lineup that is going to grind. And that message was delivered through those roster decisions at camp. Guys like Fabian Lysell, Matt Poitras, Matej Blumel, Alex Steeves, Georgi Merkulov, all very disappointed to have not made the team and be sent down. You got to think Merkulov, Lysell specifically, Blumel and Steeves to a certain degree as well. They thought they were going to get a real shot here, and they all did. They just did not put up the effort that some of these other guys did over the past few weeks. Those guys are on the doorstep, Sweeney said. There were some hard decisions to be made. Fraser Minten took the opportunity and earned it. We'll talk about him a bit later on. The others will put in the work required to be next in line. And straight up, they're going to play the players that are playing the best. And that last line is key. There are no automatic roster spots just because you are at a period in your career when you should be at the NHL level. Doesn't mean you're just going to be handed a spot. Players like Poitras, Blumel, Steeves, they played well. They impressed at times, but they didn't finish their chances. They generated what they wanted to see, the management. They just didn't finish. Management wasn't disappointed in them. They're part of the group. Chances are 1, 2, 3 of these guys will be called up at some point because we all know injuries happen. But it's a new meritocracy here in Boston. I wouldn't even call it new, right? We've seen this over and over, actually. Production and structure earn ice time, not draft status. Sweeney did praise Alex Steeves, for expanding his game in camp, taking on a fourth line role, trying to kill some penalties. He adapted to Sturm's system perfectly, whereas some of these other younger guys did not. When it comes to the bottom six, Sweeney pointed to John Beecher and Jeffrey Viel, both of whom made the team, as the standard bearers for what they want from their depth guys. Viel had a really good year last year in Providence. They know he can play. He's got that abrasiveness they value. John Beecher brings penalty killing ability, face-off elements that are important. They've had the intention to be harder to play against from day one. They wanted the most competitive players wearing the spoked B. They wanted the hardest skill they can find. And that line, hardest skill, is crucial. It's not anti-talent per se. It's about talent that battles. They believe that the hardest working players will be rewarded in the end, and that aggressiveness, that abrasiveness, hard to take off the puck, forechecking, going straight to the net will result in production, wins, fewer goals against. So from the GM's perspective to Marco Sturm, every message is aligned. Compete harder, defend tighter, and grind smarter. And between Sturm's demand and camp, that message sent to the youth, you can't coast on any single shift. The abrasive bottom six, this team's identity is crystal clear. A team that nobody enjoys playing against. You could argue that piss and vinegar kind of stinks in the end, but you don't want that on you either. One player who earned his way into that identity is Fraser Minten. He didn't just make the roster, he kind of reshaped the lineup card, and we'll discuss his making the team here as the podcast continues. The NFL season is here. There was some wild action over the weekend, and FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Just pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. People love how FanDuel gives them so many ways to play. You can build parlays, try player props, even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today. Get started with a $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. Thanks so much again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Please forgive my raspy voice. I don't know if it's a cold, allergies, too much baseball cheering, getting ready for hockey season, but hopefully it clears out very, very soon. Now, Fraser Minten is a guy who grabbed a roster spot and forced Boston to adapt their lineup. He didn't just get a job by default, he took it. A couple guys were right on the doorstep, namely Matej Blumel, Matt Poitras. Fraser, to his credit, Don Sweeney said, took the opportunity and he's earned it. His maturity, his defensive awareness, his physical presence made him a natural fit for Sturm's system. Side note, in my fantasy keeper league, I had traded Alexander Barkov in a cap-cutting move to another guy for a first-round pick, Nate Danielson from the Red Wings, and Fraser Minten. And now I can slot him into my lineup on a cheap contract. Looking forward to that. Anyways, he's going to start the season centering Mikey Eyssimont and Tanner Jeannot. So maybe I don't want to rely on him in fantasy. A trio Sweeney called very direct. And he praised Eyssimont in particular. He welcomed an expanded role, has executed at a higher level, and finds himself riding shotgun with Tanner and Fraser. Now, you could argue that both Jeannot and Eyssimont belong on a fourth line, and on a serious playoff team, they would be in that role, although Jeannot's being paid like a third liner at the very least. So we'll see if that piss and vinegar approach really pays off here in lieu of adding some more talent. For me, I would have loved to have seen a Blumel or a Poitras up there playing on second line or third line. I get you can't necessarily have Minten and another younger guy. Minten is going to be buffered by some guys who can protect him and make things happen out there. But Minten has his own ability to win battles down low that allows wingers to do what they do, which is play with pace and physicality. So it could work. They could catch opposing defenders off guard. For me, still, I would have liked to have seen another shooter or two in the lineup. Maybe you move Pavel Zacha down to the third line with Minten and somebody else. Blumel, get that check connection going. But for the time being, Zacha has moved up to the left wing beside Casey Middlestat and Victor Arvidsson, giving the Bruins a middle six that can both create and grind. Sweeney added Minten's steady play, allowed things to spread out up top, giving the coaching staff some flexibility and trust. And he also made it clear, like, the opportunity doesn't end here. Patra, Blumel, Steves, Lysell will be among the first call-ups when injuries hit. We know it's going to happen at some point. But the lesson is simple. Production and detail win jobs. You could have a great number of shot attempts, high danger chances. You got to finish them and also play smart and well off the puck. And Cam Neely said this is the kind of competition the team needed after last year's kind of stagnation. Players like Beecher, VL, Sean Corrali made the team because they played defined roles and bring energy every night. Sweeney praised Corrali's infectious personality, saying he drags people in with his energy and professionalism. That's the kind of locker room dynamic Boston has been missing, or at least since Brad Marchand was traded. It's why they believe their floor is higher this season, even if the ceiling is a bit uncertain. The lineup wasn't necessarily chosen for potential, right? It was chosen for predictability, structure, buy-in. They know exactly what they're going to get from these guys night in and night out. You put a guy like Lysell in there or even Blumel, and while they bring some creative offensive creativity to the mix, there could be some gaps in terms of defensive structure, not being hard on pucks, that lack of piss and vinegar, for a better term. They're playing catch up instead of being onion on the puck. I'm so sorry. Forgive me for that. The Bruins believe their floor can be raised by adding these guys. They're going to be harder to play against. Again, their over-under was set at 79.5. This lineup as constructed, especially with a healthy blue line and for having Swayman back hopefully at a higher level, should be good for at least 4 more points. Can they climb out of the Eastern Conference basement? Can they climb out of the Atlantic Division basement? That's a question for another day, and it would take looking at the other teams in the mix as well. Detroit's probably going to be better. Buffalo's aiming to be better. On the Metro side of things, Philly's looking to be better. The Islanders, perhaps. The Blue Jackets looking to make a step. The Rangers looking to be rebounding quickly as well. I think it's quite likely you'll see Boston and Pittsburgh down at the bottom once again. Will they be better? Probably. Harder to play against? Definitely. But Charlie Jacobs kind of indicated that they're okay with not getting fans out of their seats because the season tickets are still being sold. And that indicates that another down season, they believe the brand can sustain another down season. We'll touch on that as the podcast continues, as well as talk about our Bruin of the day, number 33, getting his number sent to the rafters, and get some closing thoughts on the roster construction here as the podcast continues. Let's say you're the Boston Bruins and you're looking for some grinders and you need them like yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Well, maybe they just check out Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites, because Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot where a company I worked for needed the right hire ASAP. The pressure was on. Every day without the right person was a setback. And that's exactly when Indeed's sponsored jobs came in handy. They made sure the post was seen by the right candidates immediately. Speed up the hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Boston Bruins. Terms and conditions apply, but if you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. I forgot to mention Murat Husnudinov was a lock for this roster as well. Not a lock, but he did make the roster. He, Sean Kuraly, Mark Kastelik will make up the fourth line, along with the lines I've already mentioned. On defense, top six was pretty much set. Jordan Harris as your seventh defenseman. And speaking of defensemen, another big headline news yesterday was Zdeno Chara's number 33 will be retired this January, officially joining Bruins immortality. It was so fun to see Cam Neely ushering Z into the arena floor, looking up. Chara thought he was in trouble in his first week of his new job as advisor and mentor. And that's perhaps the more impactful thing for right now. He's already back with the organization in that mentorship role, spreading all his details on a daily basis. He's not intimidating per se. He's demanding in his new role. And his presence reinforces everything Marco Sturm is preaching. Discipline, structure, relentless preparation. He's specifically mentoring Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm. Also spending time with young defensemen and prospects like Mason Lohrei, Jordan Harris. And it's no coincidence that the team's new mantra, compete harder, play smarter, mirrors how Chara led during his captaincy. And as a result, he is today's Bruin of the day. Speaking of captains, though, the Bruins are entering this new season without a C. I had thought maybe they might name one after training camp, but it appears as though Charlie McAvoy, David Pastrnak will lead the charge as a two-headed leadership grouping. Hampus Lindholm's return adds stability, and a third A will be named soon. But the group is united. Nobody's concerned about the captaincy, Sweeney says. They're concerned about leadership as a group. The organization even held a family day to kick off the season, a symbolic fresh start for everyone. And speaking of fresh starts, Sweeney specifically praised new assistant coach Steve Spott for commanding the special teams. They'll be a huge factor in every game, whether it's 2-1 or 4-3. Again, the Bruins are preparing themselves for many one-goal games. The PK features John Beecher, Sean Kuraly, Fraser Minten, Tanner Jeannot. Beecher, Kuraly have played that role before. Minten, Jeannot, not as much, but they earned those roles through camp, while the power play showed some improvement as chemistry built across the units, and we saw Elias Lindholm scoring that tip-home goal on a Charlie McAvoy shot on the power play in that preseason finale. While the roster is focused on now, Sweeney noted the prospect pool is deeper than it's been in years. And new development coach Ben Smith joins Adam McQuaid and Parker McKay to help prospects like James Higgins, Chris Pelosi, Cooper Simpson, Will Moore prepare for the NHL. And this is how the Bruins plan to sustain success, not by chasing stars in free agency per se, but by building competitive depth at every level. They struck out in free agency. There wasn't much there. Some of the big fish already, Connor McDavid being re-signed yesterday. The way they might be able to add another superstar this season is by drafting a guy like Gavin McKenna. It's a very deep 2026 draft. Charlie Jacobs did address the elephant in the room, which is fan expectations. This fan base has become accustomed to winning, to being in the playoffs, to going deep in the playoffs. Jacobs added, the pressure is there every day, no matter whether we won the cup or not. They've only done it once in my lifetime. We're blessed to have the market and fan base we do. Speaks to the veracity of this market and how much they love our hockey, Boston Bruins hockey. Even after finishing last in the East, the Bruins have a 95% season ticket renewal rate and a 12,000 person waiting list. That's incredible loyalty, but it also creates accountability. You can't keep those numbers up if you're losing year in and year out. Last season was seen as, yes, a potential start of a downswing, but if that flatlines for years on end, and if fans suddenly stop coming to games, stop buying merch, then that will affect their bottom line, and that's pretty much what they're most worried about. Cam Neely added they know they need to be better. That's their mission. They've got to give more reasons for TD Garden to come alive than they did last year. For right now, look, us fans aren't going anywhere, but neither is the pressure. The Bruins know they can't rebuild in silence, right? Every move is dissected. Every draft pick that doesn't hit adds to Don Sweeney's track record. Every signing that doesn't hit harkens back to Matt Beleskey, David Backes. They have to earn back trust through identity, effort, and results. And between Chara's mentorship, a renewed leadership core, one of the most passionate markets in hockey, and some piss and vinegar, the standard has been reestablished. So there it is. The new Bruins blueprint: structure, competitiveness, a healthy dose of piss and vinegar. A guy like Fraser Minten earned a spot. Other guys have to put in the work in Providence to be the next man up. Chara's back to enforce the standard. And Marco Sturm's first season behind the bench begins with one clear message: be a hard out each and every night. Tomorrow, we'll preview opening night in Washington, projected lines, goalie decisions, what to expect from this new look Bruins team under real lights. We'll also bring you all the latest on the black and gold. So please do subscribe to Locked On Boston Bruins on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. For your second listen, don't forget to subscribe to Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Please do take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. And we'll talk to you here again on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.